That's what's called, what would be called an oriki iyami in Yoruba. An oriki is a praise poem. Okay, it's like a litany, or a small performance piece that is done to honor a particular power. Okay, iyami, which tends to be, fear, bring on fear and trembling to those who don't understand it, is the gathering of powerful women, of the mothers of the society, you see. And this is what is called a gelede mass. Gelede, the word means to soothe the anger of the mothers, you see. And in Nigeria, the men put this mask on their heads with a veil on top, and they make a garment out of the geles, the headdresses of the women, and they do a performance that is designed to placate the anger of the mothers, you see, and to ask that the energy of the women of the community be used for constructive power, because we have greatly the power to create and greatly the power to destroy. There's not the image, of woman as this little, weak, washed out, powerless thing. On the contrary, the old praise poems say that in the beginning, the trickster gave all the power to the women, you see, and that over time, uh, some of the women's power was given away by her, some was taken from her, you see. And so, because women, especially in Africa, women are believed to have very, very polished flying ability, the ability to astral project, to sit right where you are and to send a thought or to send a double, to affect plants, to interact with the weather, to enlist the aid of animals. All these things are abilities that are thought to be inherent in woman, you see, and it's necessary to have her use that energy for the furtherance of society. And when the women are angry, there is fear of drought and famine and bad weather and loss of animals and so on and so forth. So the men dress up like this and dance to placate the mother of the night. Um, you know, it's a shame that we don't have anything like it in this country or in this hemisphere. What's done on Mother's Day is pitiful by comparison, to what it really ought to be as a recognition of female power. I think we see a lot of it. Uh, there not being a proper respect for the feminine as woman, as earth, as compassion, you know. We're left with a society that rapes the earth of all its natural resources, not understanding that the planet herself, whenever she's ready, she can swallow all of this, put it in her belly, recook it, and spit it back out of volcanoes and make new land. I think people don't get it, that a proper respect for the earth is about our survival. She can take all of this and recook it anytime she wants to. You know what I'm saying? So we live with ecological disaster because of that. We live with social disaster because women and children are seen as property, you know. And so we lose generations of intelligence through suppressing the wisdom of women, you know. Some woman who's forced to do nothing but clean house has in the back of her head the cure for cancer. We know that, you know, and we're going to suffer because we're not letting her speak. You know what I'm saying? We have almost no natural joy because of this attempt to make everybody a monotone automaton. You know, it's like we can't have roses and lilies and, you know, and all the different flowers. We want to mutate everybody into something. So again, you know, life can be very dreary if we were to allow technology to get out of hand, or if we were to allow masculine playtime war to get out of hand. You know what I'm saying? There's clear repercussions to not fully respecting the feminine. You know, we're suffering it every day. Every time we inhale, you know, we suffer that. We suffer that. It calls for another way of thinking about things altogether. You know, it's the mother thinks about all the children, feeding all the children. The the approach that says my children only or my property only shuts out most of creation. And so over the long haul, there may be nothing left of us. There may be nothing. You know, she'll remain, you know, and when she feels like it, cook up something new. You know, sometimes that's hard, you know, but really, um, if we continue to decay the way we are, we'll make good compost. That's a hard line, you know, but that's the mother of the night. There she is with the serpent on her head, the symbol of regeneration and immortality and ancient wisdom and sexuality. You know, I don't think that's you know, that snake looks pretty good to me. I don't have a lot of fear associated with that. I have a lot of power associated with it, and it's black and yellow, you know, which is a color combination that shows up in the animal world a lot, you know. Yeah. Black and yellow tends to say, pay attention, something's going on here. Yellow and black are also one of the color combinations of my personal goddess, you know. I'm a priestess of Oshun, who is the Yoruba goddess of the river, the goddess of love, art, and sensuality. And there's an aspect of her, what is called Ibukole, you know, and Ibukole is the vulture aspect of that goddess, and her colors too are yellow and black. And again, we see when you look at a vulture, what a vulture does is cleans up the debris, you know, up off of the earth, consumes it, yeah, passes it through her body and gives it back as fertilizer. You know, I think that's another way to see the work of the mother of the night. The face is always intense with very, very sharp eyes, you know, piercing, all-seeing eyes. And most of the time on these masks, the lips are closed because she knows all the secrets. You know, she knows everybody's business, but she ain't telling. She ain't telling. She ain't telling at all. When I was coming up in New Orleans, I was Louisiana Catholic and used to have images of the Virgin Mary around a lot. And I didn't know that she was trampling it until I was told that. I've never seen actually a statue or a picture where you actually see her feet on it. Most of the time, it looks as if the serpent is embracing her, you know? And I look at things like that very, very closely because we know that the Christian church stole a lot of the older symbolism, you see, and turned it into what they wanted for their purposes. So you have to look very, very closely at these things for esoteric meaning, you know. As to that whole Eve story, you know, it's always been highly suspect with me. When I was a child, I was suspicious of that whole Eve story, you know, and now, as a grown woman, I think that the serpent is a thematic character who is more of a trickster magician than anything else. I mean, the serpent, you know, in that folklore, the serpent comes and talks to Eve and tells her that there is knowledge to be had. That serpent shows up and helps Moses to split the Red Sea, you know, and then that serpent shows up again later on in their last book, you know, talking about cleansing the world. Sounds like a powerful character to me, you know, somebody who really brings information and helps to bring about change, and all of those things about the serpent being terrible is just projections of fear, you know, fearful projections of that kind of power. The serpent is not an ugly image at all in the folklore and the spirituality of people coming out of West Africa. In fact, in Old Dahomey, which is now known as the Republic of Benin, okay, and consequently in Haiti, where large numbers of those people were transported, we have a set of twin characters named Dambala and Aida Wedo, who are a couple, a husband and wife team, and they're rainbow serpents, you see. Dambala runs down up under the bottom of the earth, and he has Aida's tail in his mouth, and she runs over the top of the sky, and she has his tail in her mouth, and the two of them holding on to each other is what keeps the globe from flying apart, you see. You know, so we stand on the earth hoping to receive the energy of the sky passing through us and the energy of the earth passing through us. And so Haitians especially dance for the snake like that, moving the energy through your body. You know, it's a very positive image, not that scary thing. They are very, very necessary for fertility and to make use of the energy of your ancestors, you know, everything that's been left to you. All the power of heaven and earth can pass through you to be used by you if you tune yourself correctly, you see. You know, it just occurred to me, it's very interesting that you chose here to sit, because this is the wild garden, this part right here. And what I mean by that is when I travel around doing rituals with people, I often carry beans and different kinds of grain seeds, and I have people to say prayers into the things, asking for growth and change in their life, and then I bring them home and dump them in here, because this is kind of like an altar, an outdoor altar. I dump the seeds in here, and allow people's hopes and dreams to just grow wild. You see what I'm saying? And so this is some stuff. I think these fava beans came from a group of women in a workshop in Rhode Island. So those girls should be getting some positive results, you see. Things have come to fruition here. So there's all kinds of things planted here. Sometimes I use rice or millet or different kinds of beans, and we just do prayers in them and toss them. And you can see, who knows what all that is, right? But it's growing. It's happening. It's just a way of making use of the natural power of the earth, putting yourself in accord with the power of the earth. That's all there is, really. Let's see. Perhaps you're familiar with this one? Aquaba or Akuba. She's a Ghanaian fertility symbol with a head like the moon, right? And her arms outstretched. African women who want to have a child make a pack on their back and carry this doll on their back to symbolize that they want to have a child, and soon they do. I keep her hidden in the corner, I keep her hidden in the corner. I saw a woman with a dress that had this goddess stamped in the fabric, and I told her, you better be careful, because you're invoking ancient fertility there. And this is a Sunday Mass, which is used by the Mende women of Sierra Leone. They have women's secret societies that set the standard for feminine beauty. Beauty's a big issue with them. And this Mass is important because it represents one of the few societies in Africa where the women masquerade as themselves. A lot of the times the men masquerade on behalf of the women, but these women masquerade as themselves. And you can see that this one is Mother Moon. She's very moon-faced, very round, and very, very serene. In hot climates, it's not the sun who is so important. He's important, but because he's so abundant and burns things up, the moon is considered the one who is wise and cool, and who helps people out. And a lot of times the moon is associated with women. And of course this little one here is my Yemaya statue. In this hemisphere, Yemaya is the goddess of the ocean. And the mother of fertility. We have, as black people, we have a history of matrilineality in certain countries, where mother right remained intact for a long time even through contact with Europeans who tried to teach that the feminine energy should be totally smothered out. There's been brutality and witch hunts and attempts to deny parts of the culture and to diminish, but never to the extent, you know, that that has occurred in European culture. So we've always had uh, our goddesses intact. You know, we've kept quiet about them because for a while anthropologists were saying that the fact that we had them was proof that we were uncivilized. You know, the fact that our hierarchy was not rigid and sharp was proof, that we were uncivilized. But the goddesses are very important in the traditions that come out of West Africa, especially. And when I say the traditions, I mean, um, you know, the Nkisi tradition in the Congo, the Yoruba tradition in southwest Nigeria, the Akan tradition in Ghana, the Obié tradition in Jamaica, Macumba and Candomblé in Brazil, the Vodun in Haiti, and the spiritualism, black spiritualism of the United States. So everywhere that people of African descent were dispersed to, you will find traces of our original African belief systems of ancestor reverence and nature worship have been blended with the beliefs of native people in that area, which have always been similar, with in a lot of those places, a lot of the Europeans who came were indentured servants and had been, pagans essentially, who'd been displaced in Europe, and they were close to the land with regional deities and so on. And of course, we had the imposition of the Catholic Church. Now, this is where the Black Madonna served us very well. You see, the way things were back then, there was a thing called the Black Codes, and it was a document that dictated how black people should be treated, okay? And it's always very important in oppressing a people. You have to destroy their belief systems. You have to destroy, depower their gods. You have to destroy male, female, and familial relations, and take away their right to property. So the Catholic Church, which sponsored the African slave trade, okay, Father De Casas, as a matter of fact, was the one who came up with the bright idea. And in most of the countries in the so-called New World, it was required that people be christened in order to be proper slaves. I wish people would think about that. And so you had a code that said you had to be a Christian, but you could be murdered for practicing your own tradition. And at that time, the Catholic Church was very, very primitive, in its way of doing things, yeah. And, was very much into the candles and the incense and the offerings to the saints and so on and so forth. And all of this was very familiar to us as deity worship and ancestor reverence. So in a lot of places, in order to carry on, people of African descent associated their deities and the folklore of their deities with those of the Catholic saints, okay? And this is where Mary served us greatly. We looked at the stories and the images of the Catholic saints, and wherever we saw parallels with our own folklore, we identified with them, you see, so that you encounter the phenomena that I call beneath Mary's skirts, where you'll see altars that on the top have images of Catholic saints, and when you lift up the skirt on the altar, all the African images are underneath. This is how oppressed people deal with things. So, for example, Mary, Mother of Mercy, Las Mercedes, is really, for us, Obatala, the androgynous deity of the clouds, who is considered to be very, very merciful to everybody. And the Spanish Virgen de Regla, who is a black-faced Madonna, she is associated with Yemaya, who is the goddess of the ocean. That's Imonge in Brazil. And, the Virgen de Regla regulates women's menstrual cycles. People do prayers and stuff to her to have their blood flow correctly. Well, Yemaya is the pregnant womb. She has jurisdiction over women in pregnancy. You know what I'm saying? She's considered a bowl of salty water with fish in it. You know what I'm saying? Just like a placenta. Sometimes you'll get a strange association, like Shango, our Lord of Thunder and Fire and Lightning, is associated with Santa Barbara, because of her story, and in the Caribbean islands, the Mother of Charity, who is another black-faced virgin. She is associated with Oshun, the goddess of love, art, and sensuality. You see, so back in the slave period, if I were found down by the river offering a melon and a yellow candle, I could be killed unless I had a statue of Mother of Charity. Okay? So you just go down there with the statue of Mother of Charity and you do what you're going to do anyway. I think it would behoove the Catholic Church to be very grateful to Mary, because without her, it would not have most of the people of color that it has. I'm happy to say, however, that I'm a member of the first generation of priests who begin to feel like this society is ready for us to stop hiding behind Catholic images, and I personally don't use them as much as other people, though Mary remains a favorite because she is the only surviving vestige of the feminine in that tradition. And even now, one has to know that there is a big, big controversy going on with Mary, especially in California. They're the conservatives who say that Mary is their mother and she only talks to them, and you've got to take that message. And then there is a whole thing about the Virgen de Guadalupe, and the fact that some of the native people in Mexico associate her with Tonantzin, yeah, and Mary Divine, who wrote Mexican American Folk Magic, tells me that her worship is very much intact in the villages in Mexico, and then in Los Angeles, there are women who are talking among themselves about how to go about reinstating Mary as a goddess You know, how do people do devotionals, to Mary? The only thing I can think of is that, those women should take a look at Isis and Lilith and Eve and get together with some ex-nuns about Mary's rituals, and get themselves a good oracle and start to divine on what is the new road, what is the new aspect, how does she want to manifest herself today. And it's very important because she always shows up where there is suffering or great injustice, you see, which is why she's a favorite um, among people of color. There's always about uh, a 4 or 5 minute rush on the part of writers to hurry up and say she has nothing to do with the black woman. There's always that rush. See, this is what is pitiful that I was talking about earlier. The absolute psychosis around refusing to recognize Africa as the mother of creation, as the mother of humans, If we could get past that, you know, I think that we could give deeper meaning to the notion of being interconnected and being kindred, and it would, if people really got it, racism would atrophy and die, because you could not look at me without seeing your mother's sister, and I couldn't look at you without seeing my sister daughter, But I think it's too heavy for people right now, because if people actually admit that continental Africa is the mother of the species, and we look at how we have behaved in relation to that continent for a long, long time, then we will have to look in the mirror of species suicide. It's going to take a while to really get to that. It's going to take a while to really get to that. Scientists especially will, find some bones or spin some blood, and then they'll say, oh, we found the mitochondrial mother. This is the one that all human beings walking the face of the earth have descended from. We found her in the Kalahari Desert. And then you let a year pass and they've moved her to Turkey. Now they're claiming she was in Turkey, or they'll find evidence that there was interaction between people of different cultures and different races prior to Columbus stumbling up in here on somebody else's house. You know what I'm saying? And as soon as they get that straight, they scramble it and say, oh, no, 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 that must have been a mistake. You see what I'm saying? So when we come out of denial about those things, we'll be able to confront ourselves with a lot more clarity. The problem is, okay, now, I'm going to have to say this, If the earth puts us in a pressure cooker, the tidal waves, the hurricanes, the volcanoes, etc., we may have an ecological imperative to deal with. It's time for the mother of the night to open her mouth and start swallowing some debris. You know what I'm saying? It's time to eat the decay up off of the earth, chew it up, and spit out something new, So I've been invoking her who has jurisdiction over the dark and over the hidden, to go into the human brain, you know, and access some of those cells that ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be something in there that will awaken something in us that will give us another way of being, so that we don't have to, we don't have to invoke Kali in her most angry aspect. She won't have to trample us beneath her feet. But if she has to, you know, it's just a gig. It's just a gig. If people open up here and open the lower chakras, they can receive Yemaya, actually, the goddess of the ocean. She's pretty much running things, if people want to know the truth about it. She's showing up everywhere. Mary, star of the sea, the dark mother who saves all the children. She's showing up in different forms in different places. She's very active right now in Russia. She is what keeps me optimistic that human beings will get it together to save ourselves. We have to be real clear, real clear that 3/4 of this planet is Yemaya. That ocean she been doing it long before we crawled our little butts out of her belly. You know what I'm saying? We got to take a serious look at that. When we're asleep, she's dancing. I shudder to think what would happen if the ocean ever decided to stop moving. I can't even entertain that. But people have a stupid notion, which is that her tolerance is without end, and it doesn't, it's not real. Only an arrogant bastard, okay, thinks that he can take disease and just dump it indiscriminately in the belly of the mother, and that she's going to keep swallowing it and not give it back to us. I need to be clear with people. Yemaya is not like that. She will not put up with anything. She will indulge you and take care of you and be compassionate, but there comes a point when, if you get out of hand, she will smack your butt. And people have to understand. I tell people all the time, the ocean, who gives us all that fish and all those exquisite shells, who dances for us constantly, she is the same ocean who swallowed the Titanic for lunch. And people have to think about that. People really, really have to think about that. People don't understand. A lot of times the folks who think they're civilized make fun of the Native American over here smoking his pipe, or the African woman over there making her oils and her dyes, and the little country European girl who's obsessed with her garden. They don't understand that it's these people who keep the planet in one piece. They are Damballa and Aida. They are Damballa and Aida, and they keep the thing happening. That's why I always said, if a day ever came if we could get just all the women in the world to sit down and do nothing for 24 hours, that would be nothing. That would be nothing. That would be nothing, okay? And I'm talking about the air would crystallize. The ocean would stop moving. They don't understand that we have that kind of power. They understand it. That's why they have that parade. Those people who are toting the black virgin around, they understand it. You see, but because it can't be put in a test tube, You see, they can't measure it, right? It isn't valid. And we're too dedicated to the planet to really pull it. My sweet coffee skin holds secrets in its shade, whispers silent warnings to a black and white world. Do not box me in your narrow racial jackets, too tight to move in, too thin to wear. My brown pores bleed with the sweat of many nations. Generations of colors ooze down my arm. My Bantu behind plays the drums of dancing griots, telling stories with my sway, singing songs with each step. My high Choctaw cheekbones love the Mississippi Delta, remember Running Cloud's daughter and the red man gone. My breasts angle round like the dark gypsy wenches. Crescent moons touch my belly. Silver slithers on my throat. My almond eyes sparkle to the sound of eastern jingles. Glass chimes dress my eyelids. Tinkling bells kiss my brow. My dirty red hair speaks of crazy Cajun cousins, talks of fair Creole ladies and their dark Spanish men. My Tibetan thighs open and the Red Sea splits. My soft lips part between Dahomey and Brazil. My sweet coffee skin holds secrets in its shade, whispers silent warnings to a black and white world. I will not wear your narrow racial jackets as the blood of many nations runs sweetly through my veins.